What's going on, guys? It's me, everyone's favorite game developer, Mr. Splurge, finally back for another devlog. In this video, I want to cover three main things. Firstly, where I've been for the past 10 or so months. Secondly, I want to go over the new content that I've been working on, and that's going to be coming into the game very soon, a new update. Oh, exciting! And then finally, at the end of the video, I want to go over what I have planned for the future of the game. So let's start with the hiatus. Last year I started uni, I started my physics major, so that's been pretty difficult and pretty time consuming, so I haven't had as much time to work on Splurge. I did have some chunks of free time here and there. What I mainly used these for was to try to do some technical stuff with the game, so I tried to update the game to a newer framework. Currently the game runs on this really old archaic system from like the 1800s. Like you have to chuck coal into a furnace and boil water to spin a turbine, like it's pretty old and outdated. Unfortunately, I ran into a bunch of problems while doing that, so all that time was wasted and we're still back on the old system. I ended up wasting some time on some other technical changes. So for example, the mirror map, which uses its own custom renderer, I tried to do a bunch of improvements to that and none of those worked out. So again, I was back to square one. Spent most of the year basically not making any progress on the game, which it's great, it's fantastic. When my first year of uni finally ended, I decided to lock in and start working on the next update for the game. I decided, since the 1 year anniversary of Splurge is coming up pretty soon, on January 24th, I thought it would be a fitting time to release the update then. So if you've been watching my previous devlogs, you'll know that the next update I wanted to add would introduce new modifiers to the game. Basically, some toggles that you can mix and match together, each modifier just doing some small little changes to the game that would give it more customization and more of a sandbox element. I also decided to add a new game mode which changes up the game and changes how you win. And finally, I did a bunch of visual touch-ups, made some things look better, also did some improvements to the UI, just a bunch of random miscellaneous things. This includes a new background I designed for the game. Me, I personally like it, but my friends, they absolutely despise it. Like, they're considering me as the second coming of Hitler. In fact, they prefer the old background, which I made very quickly as like a sloppy placeholder. Like, I don't even think it's that bad. Like, it looks fine, it's simple, it's elegant. I don't know. I'll put them both on screen so you guys can let me know which one you prefer. I also finally fixed this issue that's been plaguing the game for pretty much since its release. This was a problem with synchronizing the game across different clients, so just fun little netcode things. So how the game works is when you try to make a move, you send a packet to the host checks to make sure it's a valid move, and then it sends out the packet to every other client. However, this wasn't perfect, as clients could desync very easily. To counteract this, I added this system where every half a second or so, the host would broadcast this sync packet which would contain all the information about each tile, its current state, and whatnot. However, this somehow resulted in another issue where clients could get stuck in an infinite loop of tile animations, basically soft locking the game. And I spent ages trying to fix this issue. This was probably the bulk of what I spent doing last year. It was a nightmare and I just couldn't get it to work. However, with a stroke of genius, I finally got a fix for it. It's going to be coming in the next update. How it works is I just added a threshold. So within the packet, there is a time for how far into the animation the tile is. What the threshold does is it compares the packet's time to the time on the client. And if the times are similar enough, the packet doesn't update the tile. Because obviously you're going to have some slight delays, and adding this seemed to fix the issue. I haven't been able to recreate it, so I'm just hoping, I'm praying that it's finally gone. Alright, now it's time to actually talk about the content that's coming in the next update. I'll start by talking about the new game mode. Previously, to win, all you had to do was eliminate every other player and be the last one standing. There was a scoreboard on the side of the screen that would just display the amount of tiles that each player had, but it was pretty useless and it was just purely aesthetic. Now, players can actually collect a permanent score where, at the end of every turn after every player's had their go, players will get points for the amount of tiles that they currently have claimed. And to stop people from just mindlessly taking over the entire map, splurging a tile also gives you a handful of points as well. And then the scoreboard's used to check these points, obviously. The game still ends the same way, so when there's only one player left. But instead of that player automatically winning the game, in this game mode, whoever has the most points wins. and that would also mean it's possible to win after being eliminated, which is kind of a cool little thing. In addition to this game mode, I wanted to add gambling, where you could gamble your points and hopefully get some more. But as of recording, which is about 10 days before the update drops, I haven't actually implemented this at all. So maybe this will be something that comes in a future patch, not long after the update comes out. And personally, I don't really want to condone gambling, so I thought maybe it could just be this thing where you lose 90% of the time, and it would be a pretty bad idea to gamble, but funny nonetheless. Alright, let's go over the new modifiers now. Firstly, there's the Fog of War modifier. This is pretty self-explanatory, it just adds Fog of War to the game. You can only see your tiles and also all the tiles that are directly next to your tiles. This means that if there was another colour next to you, you'd be able to realise, hey, there's someone else here, but you wouldn't be able to gauge the full size of their area, if that makes sense. The next modifier that's being added is the Blind modifier, or what really should be called the Colorblind modifier, as all it does is simply visually removes all other enemy colours from the map. So you're still able to see when and where moves are made and when tiles splurge, but unless you're like Rain Man and you're able to memorise every single move that's made, you're effectively unable to see everyone else's areas. The third modifier that's being added is the Sleeping modifier, and as you can probably tell, my creativity is being really stretched thin right now. With this modifier at the start of a game, some of the starting tiles will be asleep. This means that you can't directly place on them, and the only way to claim them is to splurge into them from an adjacent tile. However, splurging a tile also puts it to sleep. So you're constantly going to have a bunch of sleeping barricades around the map, basically. Then the final modifier, as my friends like to call the boring modifier, is the Expansion modifier. This one's pretty simple, you can only place adjacent to your currently claimed tiles. Something I forgot to mention for both the Fog and the Blind modifiers are these things which I just call invalid moves. Without these, it would be possible to figure out where everyone else is, as you could just try to place on one of their tiles and you'd get blocked, because obviously you can't do that. However, with either of these two modifiers enabled, making an invalid move just skips your turn, so you really have to be careful about where you're placing. The only exception to this is the first move, as if that was to be skipped, you just get eliminated straight away, which would be pretty unfair in my opinion. Similarly for the Expansion modifier, on the first turn you can place wherever you want. That's basically just you choosing your starting position that you're going to spread out from. But yeah, that's just about everything I think that's coming into the next update. Now it's time to talk about the future of the game. So for me, working on Splurge is sort of like a hobby or a side project that I just do in my free time. I've never actually properly learnt how to code or develop games, I'm mostly just self-taught. And as I've been working on the game for the past year or so, obviously I've learnt a lot more about game development and coding. And unfortunately, a lot of Splurge's old code is really outdated and just poorly made, and I can't really change it without rewriting the entire game. So I am planning for the next update or so to be the full release of the game, for it to come out of early access and for it to be considered a finished game. As I do want to work on other projects I have planned, as due to my inability to code, working on Splurge has probably knocked about 20 years off my lifespan. From all the stress from me trying to fix all of these random bugs that somehow managed to manifest themselves into the game. There is more content I want to add though. I definitely want to add power-ups, which is something I mentioned in a previous devlog. This is something that I've been pretty excited about adding ever since I first came up with the idea, but I wanted to knock off some of the more basic fundamental features I had planned for the game first, before I started working on power-ups. But yeah, I think that's just about everything I needed to talk about in this video. So surely, if you've survived this far into the video, go down below and like and subscribe. Go buy my game, please, I need money. And yeah, I don't know how to end the video.